Okay. Today we're going to start with Rav Huna Zavin Ara on Daf Nun Dalet Amid Beis. 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Here we thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. It's about learning. Shabbat Beis English immediately. Learning the Nishma Savagol of Asper Pinyamin, Sam Seb Ben Bessian, and also Refuah Shleima, Rabbi David Ben Sarah. And that's all Elias and Figures Pyra. Okay. Gemara says like this. Rav Huna, familiar with Rav Huna? It's a student of Rab. Zavan Aram Yevid Kechavim. Bought a property, bought a piece of land from a non-Jew. Well, remember we had a statement before in the name of Shmuel that if someone buys a property from a non-Jew, that means he gives the money, but he doesn't do the chazaka yet. Someone else can come in and take it. So what happened over here was Asi Yisrael Acher Rafik Baporta. Another Jew steps in and makes the chazaka, and it does he does a little digging in this property before Rav Huna does, after Rav Huna paid for it. Also, Rav Nachman, they come to Rav Nachman. Whose property is it now? Rav Nachman put it into the hands of the other person, into his hands. Amar Leis, Rav Huna says to Rav Nachman must have been the Dayan. Rav Huna was the Rosh Hashiva. Amar Leis, my daitach. What are you? What's your opinion? Why are you saying that it's not my property? I paid for it. The Damar Shmuel, is it because of what Shmuel says? That the property of a non-Jew is like considered like a desert. Whoever comes along and acquires it, he's the one that acquires it. Is that what you're saying? And that's why you're giving it to the other person. If that's the case, because you're a student of Shmuel, Rav Nachman was a student of Shmuel, and you're following the rulings of Shmuel, so why don't you just do what Shmuel also said? Another statement of Shmuel. We're on top of Nun Hey now. Damar Shmuel, like Kanal Makam Makusha Blavad. Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, that if someone takes possession of a property of a non-Jew, how does he take possession? By using a hoe, by digging a little bit. So Rav said that you acquire the whole field. Shmuel said you only acquire that one spot where you dug the hole, where you dug that one spot. So if you want to say that the person that came and dug a little bit in the field should acquire the field because you're passing like Shmuel, so why don't you continue passing like Shmuel and just give him that one spot that he put his shovel in? Yeah, that's Rav Huna's claim to Rav Nachman. You're passing like Shmuel, so take it all the way. Rashbam speaks out that we could have said another Shmuel. Shmuel says Dina de Malchus Dina. And the only way that you can acquire a property according to the government was with a document. So it wouldn't be this person's either. I'm the one that's gonna get the document. So the Rashbam says, well, that we already had resolved because he said before that he argues on that. And he holds that even though Shmuel says Dina de Malchus Dina, but he doesn't hold that the government only allows a document. The government would also allow chazaka. So it turns out over here that there's the discussion before about the government only allowing the document was not so clear. Remember, Rabbi Yosef said, that was a biased question to Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef says, I don't know about that. And then Rashbam speaks out that when he says he doesn't know about it, it's because he's ignoring the question. But really, what he really holds is that the government never really said that. So there's now like this machlekes Abaye and Rabbi Yosef, what the government holds. Interesting. Anyway, okay. If the government changes, right? The government can switch it. Well, Amar Lei, so Rav Nachman responds to Rav Huna's question. Rav Huna was telling him that if you're going to go like Shmuel, so then just go like Shmuel and just give him that one little spot that he dug. In this, I actually hold like you. Because Rav Huna says in the name of Rav, it's Rav Huna, this is the same Rav Huna. Who's told us that teaching from Rav that argues on Shmuel? That was Rav Huna. I hold like you. That once you do one little digging in the field, you acquire the whole field. So the other guy that dug in the field acquired the whole field against Rav Huna. Yeah, comes out of his own psak, ends up hurting him. Okay.
What did we say about the worker found like a ownerless home, just put the doors on it?
Yeah, that would be a Kenyan, yeah. Yeah.
All right. The opinion, they could say that his opinion, if he fences in the land, would he take possession of the whole land or just the fence?
No, that's interesting. Let me see if anyone comments on that. Hillel's asking, yeah, I assume it's still a thing. Hillel was asking if this machlekes Rav and Shmuel with digging with the shovel, if you only acquire that one spot which Shmuel holds, or like Rav that you acquire the entire area, does that mean also if you fence it in? I assume that fencing would be different. Yeah, I would too, but no offense. You never know. That's right. That's right. Shalach Rav Huna bar Ravin. We're on Nun Hey Amid Aleph, about 5 lines down. Rav Huna bar Ravin sent the following halacha. He says like this: Yisrael shalakach sada mi'evid kechavim. If a Jew buys a property from a non-Jew, it means he gave the money. But another Jew comes along and tries to and takes possession of it. So in you can't take it out of his hands. That's exactly the halacha of Shmuel. It says he's passing like Shmuel, that you can't you don't acquire it. The first guy doesn't acquire it until he makes the chazaka, even though he paid the money, but that's not everything. Yeah. Says now that Rabbi Loi and all the sages all agree with this. This is all the statement of Rav Huna bar Ravin. Okay. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, what's the Aleph over here? It's supposed to be Rava, according to the Seres Shas. Hani tlas mili ishtoili ukvan bar Nechemya reish galusa mishmei deshmuel. Maybe that's Mar Ukvan. Maybe it's Mar. I'm not sure. Is there a comment about Ukvan bar Nechemya? Do they have like a personality thing? Can I see it? We know Mar Ukva was the head of the Bezdin. They're not saying that here. They're just commenting on what does it mean, Reish Galusa. That's just the background. No. Okay. Okay, so Rava is saying, or Rabba is saying that Ukvan bar Nechemya, who is the Reish Galusa, said the following in the name of Shmuel. Dina de Malchusa Dina. There's three halachos that we're going to get here. Dina de Malchusa Dina. First one is that the law of the land is the law. Now the Gemara in Baba Kama says you see that it's the law because they cut down people's trees, they turn it into bridges, and we walk on it. Are we allowed to do that? Must be that the government is allowed to do whatever they want. Dina de Malchusa Dina would mean eminent domain. That would be the classical Dina de Malchusa Dina. Proof that we won't be allowed to use it if it wasn't theirs. Right? The proof of eminent domain that the government can take possession over anyone's property. Dina de Malchusa Dina.
that mean you should follow the law in other areas besides walking trees?
That is a big discussion. The answer is yes, but it's a big discussion. Professor's asking, does that mean you're supposed to follow the law in other areas as well?
Where is that discussion?
There's a big discussion about, well, I think the statement of Shmuel is in Gittin, the Malchus Dina, but in other places as well. But it comes out, we had something in the Durham as well, I think. But there's a discussion about, it applies to taxes. And the question is, if it applies to other laws other than tax, other than monetary laws.
I thought that the general idea of Dina de Malkusa is that the law of the land applies to Jews unless it's in violation of Torah law.
Yeah, but the question is, well, like, what does the government really have? What rights do they really have that the Torah obligates you to follow it? Like, what do they? Okay, so there's this concept that they have ownership over the state, over the property, over that. That's something. Who gave them that right? So that would probably be because they were voted in, but they're not always voted in. So
Never.
there's a lot of never. He said.
I would have said because they got the army.
Yeah, because they have the army, right? Right. So you would look at it more like.
Go back for a second. Shmuel's logic, it seems to me his logic must be that when you're buying property from a non-Jew and you pay him, the law of that land takes him out of his property, but you haven't received it yet. So it's effectively ownerless.
Right.
Right. That's really what he seems to be saying. I guess that is what he's saying when he says it's like the midbar.
Yeah. Except it wasn't the law of the land that took him out of the property. It was the fact that the non-Jew received the money. He feels like the deal's over, and so he leaves. He's stepping out. Now the Jew, in order to take ownership, he has to make the chazaka. Yeah. What happened to the kesef shtar chazaka? What happened to that? That you acquire property.
Why does the Jew have to make a chazaka? This is operating under the laws of the land. No.
Yeah, so the law of the land, that would only work if you had a document. They want a document. No, so someone commented here. Yeah, I don't know where it is. Yeah.
We learned that property could be acquired with money. This does not apply to those are non-Jew.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The question on this was that property is acquired with money, so why doesn't that work here? I don't think it's because it's the non-Jew. I think because they increase that it's not just money. That you need to have something else.
You need some physical act, right? Yeah.
Oh, maybe Taisus actually says what he'll say. Ein kinyan shel ezchem el b'mashicha. Miyada misacha b'kesef. Miyada v'kom b'mashicha. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, that's a good question, a good discussion. Okay. The first statement over here was Dina de Malchus Dina. That's the first halacha that we heard from Shmuel, and this is being told over by Rava. That was heard it from Ukon bar Nechemia. Second halacha is arisusa. Now this word needs to be edited. It's supposed to be arishan, which means a chazaka, an assumed ownership. The parsai of the Persians ad mem shnin, instead of taking 3 years, actually takes 40 years. So that's the Dina de Malchusa. Even though we said that a person only acquires something with a document or in the Dina de Malchusa, right? Remember we had that. So, but however, if he's just So if he's in the property for 40 years, then that's different. Then that's considered his. Okay. It's a big jump from 3 to 40. Vahani Zaharuri, the third halach is that these people that inherited properties. Now, it's actually, these are people that are paying taxes for other people, and they're taking over other people's inheritances by paying the tax on it. They purchased the land by paying the land tax. So, and we say that when they sell it, Zavinu Zavini, that's considered a good sale. In other words, they actually own the land. They're able to do business with it. We say that's also would go under Dina de Malchus Dina. Now, let's say the original owner comes up with the tax money. He says, "I want it back." It's too late. Zvini Zvini. It's considered. It's in the hands of the new person. Now the Gemara goes on. It says, "Vani mila taska." That's only if it was a property tax. That would allow him to take ownership over the land. But if he paid just the head tax, different type of tax. It was a property tax and a head tax. If he paid the head tax, then he would not acquire the land, even though maybe the government gets involved and they arrest him. And he didn't pay his taxes, and they could take the land. But the land is not subjugated to the head tax. So if someone comes in and pays this person's personal tax, head tax, then he doesn't get his land. My timer. What's the reason? Karga akarkif the gavri manach. The head tax is on the skull of the person. It's not on his land. So when you come in and pay this person's head tax, you don't acquire his land. Rav Huna B'Rav Yeshua Rafilu Shari the kada mishtabdi lakarga. Rav Huna B'Rav Yeshua says no. Even the barley that's in the jug is all subjugated to pay the head tax. It means everything the person owns goes for the head tax, and so therefore, if you pay his head tax, you can end up with everything that he owns. Yeah, because the government can arrest him. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says so. There's a machlekes here regarding if you pay someone's head tax. Head tax means that it's on his head, right? If you pay that tax, if you end up acquiring the person's property.
You say that Dina de Malchus Dina is zero.
Well, that's a good question. Yonatan is asking if Dina de Malchus Dina is rabbinic or biblical. Now, if it has to do with ownership, if what Dina de Malchus Dina means is that the government has the monetary rights to that, then when a person would violate it, he would actually be stealing. So then that would be a biblical law of stealing, right?
Question about non-Jews.
What was the question? Those are machlekes. If you're allowed to, no. But Gneva Sakim is also not allowed to steal from a non-Jew. Is that considered rabbinic or? Oh, they may be right. They end up being rabbinic anyway, even if it goes under those laws. I asked. I was at a lecture. Some Mishpat. They were discussing something. Anyway, I said, why doesn't they're talking about Dina de Malchus Dina? So why don't you just say that if you sign up to a club, you have to keep the laws of the club? Dina de Malchus Dina. It was like this whole thing was this like halachic thing. It's not a halachic discussion. Dina de Malchus Dina is you signed the thing. You said you went like this when you came into the country. So that's it. You agreed to follow all the rules. Why is that? It should apply to everything. Why is it just a discussion if it's taxes or other things?
Maybe that's why some people don't want to. Like, oh, I want to do it with a citizen.
No, but you have to, right? someone wants to come to the country, they make him swear. No? They don't make him
I
swear.
don't know. The whole
Anyone did immigration? No one did immigration.
the whole thing with the hand, I know that it's like for citizenship.
Right.
I don't know if before that.
Uh-huh.
People could be here without being citizens.
Well, because they were born. Because
One, they get automatic citizenship.
Right.
There's residence, and there's even like temporary.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, Amalei Huna Bar Nasan. Kashiba Meimar. Kashiba Meimar. Amar Ravashi. Rashi says that Rahuna Bar Nasan said to me, Kashiba Meimar. A Meimar has a question on this. Imkain Batalti Yerushas Benaya Bachar Davali Roy Vena Bachar Neitel Break B'Machsek. There's a little bit of a problem. That if a person didn't pay his tax and he died, so when it comes to the firstborn inheriting, the firstborn only gets the double portion from what's actually in the estate at that time of death, not things that possibly could come into him, not things not investments that are getting dividends and those things. You don't get the double of that. You only get what's actually owned. Now, since when the person died, he didn't pay the last year's tax because it wasn't the time yet, which basically means that last year's tax, they could confiscate the property, which means which means that it's not 100% owned by that person, but consider it more like potential, more than actual. If that's the case. So why would a firstborn get his get a double portion? Shouldn't be getting any double portion. All the property could disappear into the government's hands. Amarlei, this is a question on Huna Breder of Yeshua. Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua that said that even the head tax has a you can confiscate the property.
That's what I was wondering. The last thing you explained is head tax.
Yeah, this is not so far. It's on the head tax. This is what the question is. So he responds back. I'm not sure who's responding here. Does it say? Amarti Lai. Oh, it's different. The Rashash fixes it. Not that he responded to Huna Bar Nasan. If that's the case, why are you only asking about the head tax? The same thing should apply to the land tax. So what do you want to answer? Do you have taska miss? That first he paid the tax and then he died. Do you have cargo miss? So the same thing. That answer you could give also for the head tax, that he paid it, then he died. Yeah, someone told me there was this thing in the at work. They had to take a little course. Everyone at this work had to take a course, and then after the course, they had to do a little quiz. So every month they had to do this, like a course and a quiz, a course. So someone said, it's almost the end of the month. You have to do it. He says, "Oh no, I did it on the second of the month." So why do you do it on the second? You have to do it before the end of the month. Because I was busy on the first. So yeah, there's two ways of some people pay their bills. At the beginning of the month, some pay it at the end of the month. So it depends on how organized you are. So this guy, he pays his tax and then he dies. It's not that he died even though it's the beginning of the year. You have till the end of the year, but he pays the tax right at the beginning of the year, and then he died. So
he still has all that time paid.
So the inheritance now it doesn't belong. It goes to the firstborn. The firstborn gets double because the government has no rights to it. It was already paid. Okay.
So debts are also inherited.
I'm not sure. We're just looking at it like, well, because the person owed the money to the government before he died, the government could theoretically have confiscated it. So then why should the firstborn get the double portion? That's the way we were looking at it.
So to respond to Yonatan's question, it's a great question. I'm looking in a book here and it says, there's a whole chapter about the question that Yonatan asked. It starts out, Shitas Rabbeinu Tam v'Habei Shmuel she'adina de Malkusa mida Rabbanan. Then it also goes on to say, Mashmaot Harishonim she'adina de Malkusa mida Raisa. So
like this. Yeah. Very good. What's the name of that sefer?
Dina de Malkusa.
No, they have no imagination. Okay. Okay. Excellent.
They derived it from a puzzle.
Wondering about the Hawaii rice in Texas. It says like if there's an estate, they could go after the state, and if someone like joins, files jointly, they'll go after the spouse.
Oh. So, Amar Ravashi, Amar Li Huna Bar Nasan. Ravashi says another statement that Huna Bar Nasan told to me that Shaltino L'Sifri de Rava. I asked the scribes of Rava of Amrali, and they said to me, it's probably the people that work in the Besdin or something. He said to me, Hilchas Rav Huna Bar Rav Yeshua, that the halachas like Rav Huna Bar Rav Yeshua, which means that if someone didn't pay his head tax and someone else came in and paid it for him, he ends up with the property. That was Rav Huna Bar Rav Yeshua. However, Ravashi says V'loihi, but that's not actually accurate. Hasam Lukumi Milsu Damar. The only reason why they said that was because they had actually ruled incorrectly, and so they were saying that we follow. That's the halacha. Okay. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says Pardeches. How do they translate Pardeches? It's a jobless person, but do they have a good English word for it?
Loafer.
What do they call it?
Loafer.
A loafer? Okay. Yeah. So Pardeches Mesayeh Masa. What do they say over there? An idler. An idler. And the Mendi and the Golem, they call that idol worship. When someone's doing nothing, they say there's idol worship, and then there's idol worship. Idol, IDOL, idol worship. And there's IDLE, Bittul Torah.
Some portion interpret the word as an abbreviation of the word Boria. In place, this place is the fed an idle individual who spends a great deal of time fed.
Oh, wow. Who's saying that? Some early commentators, they're showing me in the note. Early commentators say it's Purya de Kutoy. It's an abbreviated word, a hyphenated word, like a compound word. Purya de Kutoy, which would mean that he's Purya means a bad, and Kutoy means a non-Jew.
An idle individual.
Means he spends a lot of time in bed. So but nevertheless, what we're learning over here is Messiah Masa, he has to help out in the city tax, even though he doesn't have a job, but tough luck. He's got to come up with to participate in the city taxes. Ani Meli, that's only that Silte Masa. That's only if the
Heard somewhere 50% of Americans don't pay tax.
oh yeah. This is only if the city came in to save him from paying the tax. That means they came to him to pay the tax, and the city comes in and he doesn't have the money, and the city paid it for him, so the money ends up going on to everyone else. So he's supposed to participate and pay his part. Avalan Diski, but if they forgot about him, in other words, when they allotted how much tax is going to be paid, they just missed him because he doesn't have a job. And Siyata Dishmaye, that's just help from heaven. He doesn't have to pay. Amar Avasi Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Avasi said name Rabbi Yechanan. Hametzar, a border, v'chatzav. Chatzav is a type of plant that grows straight down, so it allows to create a borderline. How do they translate that?
A sequel.
Sequel? Sequel. Oh, squill.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like the type of something from asparagus or something, unless I don't know how they. What do they have? A word over there? Chatzav.
Yeah.
They're not translating it. They're just writing chatzav. Okay, the Hebrew I know. So They're going to divide the field when it comes to taking ownership of a property of a convert that passed away. So if you have these chatzavs there or a boundary, you only acquired the part that you acquired. This would probably be only according to Rav. According to Shmuel, you only acquired the part that you dug. Right?
Because of its tall, straight form that returns annually, the will was used to demarcate boundaries between fields as described in the Gemara, both in ancient times and in Arab villages.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's poison.
Oh, really? So avalinian peva tumalai, but it doesn't separate properties when it comes to peya and tuma. When it comes to leaving the corner of the field and also for impurity. Yasser Ravin Am Rabbi Yechanan, that was what Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Ravin comes and says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Afilu the peya of tuma. It's the same thing applies that for peya and tuma. It separates the properties, which means that you're going to have to give a separate peya, which means that we'll see how it applies to tuma. And the Gemara is going to send us also how it applies to Shabbos. Peya mahi. What do you mean peya? There's a machlekes over here if it separates fields regarding peya. The Tanan was learned in the Mishnah. The following divide a property when it comes to peya. Anachal, which is a stream. It's really the valley of the stream. It's not the water. It's the ravine. Vashalulis this is the actual stream. That's from melting rainwater, I think. Yeah. V'derech harabim, or if there's a 16 amma path in between the fields, v'derech hayachid, or if there's a 4 amma path between the fields, shvil harabim, or if there's a path that's used for foot walking, pedestrian path, not one for wagons like the other ones are, or shvil hayachid, or whether it's maybe just for individuals, it's probably even smaller than that. A kavua that's always there, in the summer or the winter, that's going to divide a field. And so we're saying that there's a machlekes between Rabasi and Ravin. If Rabbi Yechanan said it would also, if a meitzar, a border, or a chatzav, which is that type of plant, would also divide the field. For peya, we have to give peya twice. Give peya one for each field. Tuma mahi. What does it say? What is it regarding tuma that we say does it divide or doesn't it divide? The Tanan we was learned in a Mishnah. Someone goes into a field, to a valley, in the winter. Now the reason why it's in the winter is because people aren't there, and when the rule is that whenever you have a doubt regarding tuma, if there's a rabbim, if there's more than 3 people there, 3 or more people, then Safek Tuma B'Shas Rabbim is Tahar. Learn from Saita. The Saita is considered Tameh, and she's Tameh because she was secluded. There's only 2 people there. But once there's 3 people, that's considered a Rabbim, then she wouldn't be considered Tameh. So we learn from that to other types of Tuma, even a Tuma of a corpse, that the same thing would apply, that if there was a doubt, if it's Rishus HaYachid, then it would be Tamei. This is considered Rishus HaYachid because it's in the winter and the field was already sown and people don't walk on it. So if someone goes in there in the winter, but Tumah beside the plainness, and there's Tumah in a certain field. I went into that valley, but I don't know if I went into that field. Imlav or not. Rabbi Lezer Mitar. Rabbi Lezer says that it's tar. Why does he say that it's tar? Because there's a svek sveka. I don't know if I went into that field, and even if I went into that field, I don't know if I went to the place of the tumah. The Chachamim say mitamin. The Chachamim say no. It's all considered one field, and you have one suffix. Did you reach the place of tumah? It's only one suffix. It's not a svek sveka. Svek sveka is a double doubt. suffix is one doubt. So the Chachamim view the whole field as one, and Rabbi Elazar views as divided, which means that this discussion, what would divide the field, for Rabbi Elazar to say that it's a sveka, that's a discussion now if the meitzar and the chatzav would divide the field to make it into a sveka. Shahir Rabbi Elazar, I misafik biyatar. Rabbi Elazar said that if there's a doubt, if you entered into that area, that's tar. Safik magatuma is tame. But a doubt regarding if you touched it, that would be tame. Yeah. Okay, now, Aval Shabbos loy, but everyone agrees that for Shabbos it doesn't divide it up. Now we didn't explain what's significant there. Rava Amar, but Rava says I feel it in Shabbos. Rava says that the field gets divided if by a border or by the chatzav, by that plant, even for Shabbos. Now why is that significant? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Let's say someone carries on Shabbos, carries half the amount that would make him liable. The amount that would make him liable is a gregors, which is a large fig. I think a dried fig, right? And he carried half, so he's not going to be chayav. However, he put it down. He goes in, he carries out another half. If it's in one forgetting, in other words, he didn't remember in the middle that it was Shabbos, so it's not divided up. It's considered like the same action, right? Then he's going to be chayav. But if he remembered in the middle that it's Shabbos and then he forgot again and he does it again, then he would be pater, then he would be exempt because that would be divided up. Now Rabbi Yossi says, there's one more criteria. If it's in the same forgetting, he's only going to be chayav if he carried it into the same location that he carried the first one to. But if he carried it into another Rishus Harabim, now how would we divide this up? One Rishus Harabim or another Rishus Harabim, they're all like connected somehow. Well, if there would be a meitzar or a chatzav in between, that would divide it up. So Rava would say that it would divide it, and the other opinions over here said that it won't be divided. Shtei rishuyos, if he carries the second time into another rishus, then it's going to be pater. V'amar Rabba, and Rabba says that would only be if there's a rishus hayachid that would go in between them. Rabba says the only way that would divide it up would be not a meitzar or a chatzav. What would be two rishus harabim? Only if there's a rishus hayachid in between the two rishus harabim. One side you carry the first time out the back door, you carry the second time out the front door. So in between there's a street in the back, a street in the front. So then what's dividing them is the rishus hayachid. Aval karmelis loy, but if there would be just a karmelis in between the two rishus harabims, that's only a rabbinic. So then that would not divide it up. That would be considered the same rishus. Abaye amar afilu karmelis. Abaye says even a karmelis would divide it up. Aval pislalai, but if there's just be like a big block of wood or something in between, that won't divide it up, like a pole of some sort. Rava says afilu pisla, that even if there would be a block of wood, this pole in the middle, that would divide it up. Was the Rava latamei, and Rava follows his reasoning. Rava Rishus Shabbos, Rishus Gittin Dami, Rishus Shabbos, that the locations on Shabbos is just like the locations of Gittin. Now, what that means is that if a man wants to give his wife a get, but in order to give her the get, he has to give her property, so he's going to throw the get, and it's going to land in her property. So he gives her property. But when he throws it into the property that he gave her, it ends up not landing on the floor. It ends up landing on this post or this block of wood. So we say when he gave her the property, did he give her, it's sort of lending it to her. When he's lending her this property for her to acquire the get, did he give her also this block of wood together with it or not? We say that when a person lends property, he only lends one property, doesn't lend two properties. So we say that since that block of wood is significant, so it's considered a separate independent property. So he didn't lend it to her, so she's not going to be divorced. So Rava says, Rishus Shabbos is Rishus Gittin, that would be considered a separate property. So therefore Rava also follows what he says over here, that he says that the meitzar and the chatzav would also be dividing a property. Regarding Shabbos, So one carries into another Rishus Harabim that's divided by this, it's not going to be chayiv because it's not going to combine the two half of figs that we carry. Okay, let's leave it here. Okay, everyone.